Collab, not multiplayer. I'm Honeyshuckleex.
I'm Sackbot Barbecue.
And I'm Giggleclutz. And today we're going to talk about a game called Kentucky Route Zero.
Yeah, you might be thinking, ooh, is that a racing game?
No. The answer is unequivocally no.
Is it a visual novel?
Also, no.
No.
I would say no. It's closer to a walking driving simulator than it is a visual novel, I would say. But also, no.
Yeah, because I wouldn't call it a walking sim either.
It's like it's point and click, but it is just point and click. No puzzles, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Kentucky Route Zero is developed and published by Cardboard Computer. It came out in 2013. It's available for $24.99 on Steam, and I'm sure other platforms. And for right now, at the time of recording this episode, which is very soon, same week as it's going to be published, is also available with Netflix subscriptions in the United States. I just checked yesterday to see if that's the case. So
still a wild branch to try to do Netflix, but
I think they're grasping at straws, but that's a discussion for another day. Meanwhile, we'll get into a second really how we feel about the game. I'm just gonna say I have no idea, as an art video game lover, how I missed this, how I did not hear about this. How is this not on my radar? It came out the same year as the Stanley Parable. I had never heard of it before. You brought it up to play it. I think I may have seen the picture because it had shown up in like something, but I didn't even really look into it. I'd never heard anybody talk about it or anything.
This definitely seems like the sort of game that would, like, it would always be niche, but it sounds like something that would be like one of those things that people would say, like, this made me cry, or
oh yeah, for sure.
Weirdest game I've ever played for some people. Like,
yeah, we might actually need to have a tier list for that at some point. That might be a fun episode to do. Weirdest game we ever played. This one would probably be on it, but it wouldn't be near the top.
No.
All right. What we do want to say is that, while we do recommend it, I'll be upfront, we're making an episode about it, so we like it. That's pretty much our baseline. I also admit that I'm into shit that not everybody's into, so this game is not for everyone. It was published in chapters. I'm not sure. I didn't do any research into, I just vaguely noticed that it was released in installments. I'm not sure if the installments were the 5 acts or whether the 5 acts and the 4 interludes, so it was more like 9 releases, or whether it was 5 releases. Anyway, the game is divided into 5 different acts, and in between each act is an interlude where it changes perspective and stuff. It's every single section of it is different from every other section. Some of them are more similar than others, but they're all different, and you can tell that it wasn't all released at the same time. That is available, but it's not a detractor from this. But this is very much an art piece. A lot of the dialogue and story is all in poetry that could be taken metaphorically. There's some canon lore stuff that at least Shuckle and I didn't get right away. I found out later, perusing a couple of, like, I just wanted to see what some of the buzz was about this after we finished playing, and I'm like, oh, there was some information about some characters that apparently we were supposed to take stuff literally, and I thought it was metaphoric, and I'm like, oh, okay. I had no idea. I'm like, that was poetry, why isn't this poetry? So anyway, if you don't like art film, and you need things to be a fast pace, if you need platforming or anything like that, you need your story to be logically consistent for you, you need things spelled out for you, this is not the game for you. This game is slow. Its dialogue is kind of, gosh, I'm trying to find a good descriptor for it. Poetic is a good word, but it's also, I don't know. It pulls on a lot of different stuff. There's like a section that is an entire play, and I have a theater degree. I actually like offbeat black box stuff, and this is a lot. I mean, I've seen stuff on stage that was a lot like that play, but that kind of stuff is not for everyone. It really isn't. But if that stuff is definitely not for you, this game isn't for you. Dabble in it for free, or, for paid, already in your paid subscription if you want, but, don't diss on the game because we warned you it wasn't for you. Don't act like nobody told you it wasn't. But at the same time, if you've ever wondered what that stuff was like and you needed privacy to witness it, like you're not comfortable in art galleries, or you wouldn't want to, nobody wants to go with you to an art play, this would give you a dip your toe into what that stuff might be like. And quite frankly, $20 is about what you'd pay for a cheap play ticket seat anyway, so...
It's like, if you want to judge a game's value by how much playtime you get for the price tag, this one's a pretty damn good deal.
I feel like that's only one kind of gauge you should have, and this is definitely not the game to be,
No.
It's either gonna be big bang for buck or really challenge your logic there.
Because it is kind of methodical, but the pacing is part of... It's a mood piece. It really is. A lot of it's in black and white, but not all of it. It's got a lot of variations. Anyway, so this... If you're not into art experiences, you don't like experimental theater, then yeah, maybe give this one a pass.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend this game because it's fun. I would be inclined to describe it as fun at various points, but I would not at all sell it on that premise.
But as we've said before with our art episodes, the point of art isn't necessarily to be fun. It's to be challenged. It's to have an experience that you wouldn't have any other way. And I honestly can say that about Kentucky Route Zero. I would not have had this experience any other way. This is a very unique experience, and it does some things really, really well. And so we'll get into the details of that in a little bit here, but just, we wanted to do a little caveat here that's like, this game, the idea of art stuff makes you excited, especially art stuff that dives into poetry and weird. This is a good one for that. This is a good one for art folks who want to get into video games more than the other way around.
The game is not for you, but if you like it, then that's great.
We're not selling it super well, but no, seriously, as an art person, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I've known some other people who enjoy it a lot. There's some people who said it was the most important game of the last decade, which is why I'm flabbergasted that I had never really heard of it before.
Yeah, it's like this game's real famous among people who know it.
Which is a ridiculous measure of anything. The one thing that I found really interesting is how many points of commonality it had between... And people who've played both of these games will either think I'm crazy or will go, yeah, absolutely.
Or both.
Well, yeah. We're not even debating that.
The point is that you compare this game a little bit to Night in the Woods.
A lot, actually. I mean, Night in the Woods isn't trying to be an art piece. It's trying to be a video game. It's just fun. And there's a lot going on, and it's a lot bright colors and bouncy character and all of that. But it also examines some of the same themes of capitalism and decay and about how things change and about the values that kind of cause the decay. And we'll get a little deeper into themes in a little bit here, but I would love to hear more people talk about the similarities of the environments of Kentucky Route Zero and Night in the Woods. I feel a very much an Appalachian vibe, and I say that, not as an Appalachian person, but as someone who's followed Appalachian content creators talking about what they go through and some of their cultural structure and that kind of thing. I find those vibes very heavy in both of these games. And a lot of times when there's waypoints or, times when we're waiting for things in Kentucky Route Zero, the main theme from Night in the Woods would be in my head. So, I think that the Zero could be just down the road from Possum Springs. I mean, it really feels like it could be. And maybe in my headcanon they are now.
I want to say, Night in the Woods is definitely a lot funnier more often than Kentucky Route Zero is. They're definitely, not trying to do the same thing, but kind of end up in the same place.
Yes, they absolutely do. And music. Music plays a big role in both games. A different role in both games, but it's kind of interesting that there is that commonality. And Kentucky Route Zero, the people are people. They're not animal people.
Yeah, they're definitely people, but some of them might actually be animals, though.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. Sure. And we're not too worried about spoiling Kentucky Route Zero for you, because it's the vibe that you're there for, and the weirdness of the whole experience, knowing the details of what's coming, isn't gonna ruin it for you.
How do you spoil a vibe?
Right.
Yeah, the game takes plenty of time to let its mood play out, that you might forget some of the stuff we spoiled for you by the time you get to it.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely long enough.
Yeah. You gotta be ready for a prolonged experience to really take your time with this game, which is what it demands. You can't rush it. So anyway, at this point, we'll put our spoiler warning and we'll get into themes and those kind of things. So you've been warned. Spoilers ahead and all that kind of good business. So the first thing that this game brings up, because of its mechanics, is the question of what's a meaningful choice in gameplay. Because they let you choose what you're going to say, and that's kind of where your choices are made. Mm-hmm. And it starts with something as basically innocuous as you have this old dog, and while you're talking to the old dog, you as the player decide.
Well, you're talking to a guy at a gas station and he asks, what's the dog's name? And you can say, her name is Blue, his name is Homer, or dog doesn't have a name.
And now all of a sudden the player changes the game.
It's like, yeah, you pick the first option, her name is Blue, it's like, yeah, the dog is now named Blue and is a female dog.
That's our dog. Blue's our dog.
That's our experience. Our experience of Kentucky Route Zero, her name is Blue. And
that's just it. Her name's Blue, okay?
Yeah, and I'm avoiding making the noise, because...
Blue's Clues, Blue's Clues!
Yes. Yes. You were a baby when that was brand new, and we spent a lot of time together watching that brand new television experience, but that doesn't have a ton to do with Kentucky Route Zero.
No.
Yeah, don't go expecting all these paw prints to add up, alright, pal?
No. But, so then you get to have, again, like Night in the Woods, you have to make choices about what you're going to do. And then when you do that, you only have so much time. You only get to choose so many options. What's weird, though, about Kentucky Route Zero is because they have an act and scene structure, it will skip numbers. At least we did experience that in Act 4.
Did we?
Yeah.
Huh.
There was a whole scene that we skipped because we didn't go someplace that they wanted us to. We made a different choice.
Oh, you mean like we sat and like watched the dogs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's kind of that would come up because, unlike a lot of the optional things, like those, there were always like sets of 2 scenes happening simultaneously and you got to pick which one you wanted to watch.
Mm-hmm. And there were locations that you get to decide whether or not you wanted to go to.
So, yeah, Act 4 is definitely the one where it's like, that kind of locking decision thing is most like Night in the Woods, but for the rest of the game it's still present because of dialogue choices. You basically get to decide what you want to see of the lore.
Yeah, because you're only allowed... It's not like old Monkey Island, where you can go through the entire dialogue tree all the time. You don't get, you may have to find all the stuff, go back again and again and go through the whole dialogue tree. With this, you don't know how many shots you're going to get, you don't know which options are even going to come back.
Yeah, it was a regular thing, I think, for a lot of them, where you'd get, like, 4 options and you get to pick 3 of them.
Yeah.
So you have to prioritize the things you really want to know about.
And that's only from, like, conversations where you're, like, going up to, like, a receptionist or something. If you're just, like, having an organic conversation, no, you get 1. You have 3, pick 1.
So yeah, forget Mario 64. Every copy of Kentucky Route Zero is personalized.
I'm gonna nod like I totally get that reference.
We'll explain it later.
Yeah, that's fine. So anyway, they do have an interesting take on meaningful choices, which, if you want to be really deep about it, is kind of a commentary for life, because it lays out the groundwork for the idea that there's always going to be things you don't know. And because those options sit there and you have the choice whether or not to take them, you're more cognizant of what you might not know than you would have been otherwise.
Yeah, like, there's sometimes where, like, the characters are talking about, like, their backstory and stuff. Like, especially Shannon and Conway talk about some stuff that's happened to them. And sometimes it's not exactly, like, a difference in events, it's just a difference in tone. You don't know, like, are you deciding different realities of how this happened? Or are you just deciding, like, to lie? Like, does it matter?
Sure. Where does discretion lie? Is the question. It's like, what's our business? What isn't our business? The game's not asking these questions, but that is something that could press on your brain as you play.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, for the whole game, you've always got somewhere you're supposed to be, but when you get into conversations, you often have a choice between being, do I want to ask what's going on here, or do I be practical about my goal?
Which, as the game goes on, you care less and less about the goal. In fact, you're kind of encouraged to almost forget about it entirely.
Say, oh yeah, we're looking for 5 Dogwood Drive. Right.
I forgot we were doing that. I got so caught up in
everything.
In the museums, in the weird buildings, in the bat sanctuary, in the mammoth on the ferry boat, in the...
Sorry, I've been watching all of these VCR tapes.
Right.
It's like, here's your surreal Kentucky road trip simulator.
Through the mines. The zero's a trip, man. So, let's see. So what's a meaningful choice? We did that. And then we can get into themes now a bit. So...
Okay, so I want to mention something I can't help but say about the mammoth on the ferry boat. It's just like, so you go through this whole thing, and then, at the end of chapter 3, you're waiting for the ferry, it pulls in, and there's just a silhouette of a mammoth on the boat, and I had no idea whether or not it was just gonna be a real mammoth.
Is it a mammoth? Is it an animatronic? Is it somehow both?
Right,
It was an animatronic mammoth, but that was more surprising.
And the game starts out where you're just like, I'm not sure what's real. I'm not sure if my characters are alive.
Yeah.
Are we all alive? Are any of us... are we all dead? Who's a ghost? What's a ghost? What does it mean to be dead?
So it's just like, it starts out first, the first weird thing you have is, determining the reality of the dog in that way, but... The second thing is, you go into, the basement of the gas station, because gas stations have basements sometimes. Well, they do here, and there's some people playing a game who don't acknowledge you exist and are only there when the lights are on. And it just keeps getting weirder from there.
Yeah, because then you've also got, TV ghosts, and highways that spontaneously appear in backyards, and giant flying birds that happen to be children's brothers, and... animatronic mammoths, yes, but also android miners turned band.
Yeah, that we didn't know that was what we didn't know. We didn't realize that Junebug and Johnny were androids because I thought that was a poetic metaphor. I didn't.
The minds made us. It's like
right.
You think oh, so you're traumatized,
right? This is a metaphor for self-concept and utility, right? Oh, no. According, the article I was reading, the skimming and stuff was the androids. I'm like, wait, they were androids? We've just played the whole game and I didn't realize they were androids. I really thought that was a metaphor. It's
turns out understanding the story is completely optional.
It kind of is. The vibe is enough.
It's there's I'm almost certain there's a metaphorical purpose to making those two androids, so, not taking it literally is
oh, yeah.
It's not the full picture, but it's still valid.
But it does make their conversations about their relationship have a different kind of connotation than they did before. They were interesting before. They make a ton more sense if they're actually androids.
Yeah, because, one of the big themes is, Junebug will always call Johnny her cricket. And I'm like, okay, it's a nickname. It's you're Cricket. You're my Cricket. And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. But no, it's you're not my boyfriend, you're my Cricket. It's okay, now we're getting a little...
And, I don't know that I have a definitive opinion about what that means.
It's not for us to know.
I guess. I'm not an android. But I will say that Junebug definitely touched Shuckle. Shuckle loves Junebug.
Junebug's awesome.
Yeah, it was this whole thing where, you start out with just one character and amass a party, which,
Does that make this a JRPG?
No, there are no stats.
No, but it's if this would be an excellent ensemble cast for that.
I gotta say, yeah.
This is the most JRPG game I played that's not a JRPG.
So if you ever wanted to explore more hoity-toity art as a JRPG lover, this might be your bridge. Just saying.
No stats, so absolutely no grinding.
No grinding, no min-maxing,
Yeah, so if those are your favorite parts of a JRPG, then no, probably not.
But there's still a tiny bit of character builds. Okay, well, depends on how you define a meaningful choice, because they're all going to be little narrative things that don't change the story at all. or, gameplay, since it's not mechanics driven.
And here I was thinking that you were talking about Conway's leg.
No. Sadly, you have no choice in that matter.
No. So, what does it mean to be dead? Are you dead in the game? Is this the afterlife? Are questions that are, if you're anything like us, are going to start happening for you, like, almost right away. It's like...
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. It's like, as soon as we're starting to see, like, a TV ghost, I'm like, okay, yeah, so we're talking about the afterlife. And it's like, okay, we're gonna be going to the afterlife. That's what the 0 is. And then we go to the 0 immediately, and we're like, wait, what? It's like, that's Act 2.
Right. And if you're listening because you're never going to play this, the 0 is kind of a weird highway that goes through old mines, but it also is non-Euclidean. It defies logic. You get instructions to go in this circular path. Go clockwise until you hit a symbol that they mention. And the symbols are weird things.
It's like, go until you hit the anchor, then go until you hit the crystal, then go until you hit the horses, whatever.
And then you turn around.
Yeah.
Then you do a U-turn and go counterclockwise until you hit the next thing. So it's kind of like opening a lock, a dial lock, but you're driving the truck around this circle while you do that. It's an interesting mechanic.
It's, kind of a forked path, but appears to be a circle, and all the branches are behind you.
Yeah, you have to go to something and then turn around. So it's, when you think about that, that could have metaphoric layers of stuff. If it resonates for you like that, go with it, because it definitely supports it. I don't have anything to back that up in the moment. I would have to be playing it again, I think, to find it, but...
Yeah, it's like, when you think about, term afterlife, it's like it's after. It's about what came before.
Ooh.
So you gotta turn around to find the things in it.
And here, all I'm thinking about is losing Eurydice because you turned around. Orpheus looked back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's all I could think of.
Sorry, I've seen the Chaos show too recently for that to be like, okay, yeah, that does happen. Sorry, I like the show better than the Greek myth. It was a really fun show. I'm very sad they're not doing a second season. Anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem with Greek mythology these days. Everybody has a favorite adaptation they like instead.
Well, and that's fine. I think that's... if we're going to sidetrack for a second to talk about that, like, isn't that kind of why the stories are timeless? Because they adapt to that? Some of the things they have to say are very much about the nature of power in human consciousness and in human society. In this age of the billionaire, these are very prominent and important ideas.
Yeah, I was mostly just thinking, we all collectively decided we're just going to run off of all this folklore.
Well,
I'm a firm believer in the adaptation and not staunch believer in tradition, so...
I guess this means that you guys would probably be open to be talking about Hades at some point, huh?
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to Kentucky Route Zero.
Where were we going? Oh, yeah.
So we're turning around at the TV.
And we're going past the cathode tubes, and we're ending up at the Bureau of Reclaimed Spaces.
Yeah.
Just to give you a chance to talk about your favorite thing about the Bureau of Unclaimed Spaces.
So there's several floors of the Bureau. It's kind of like, I don't remember what kind of space they were taking up, but it's kind of semi-indoor, semi-outdoor.
I believe that's where the church was.
Well, no, the church is the distillery. Or was it both a church?
I'm not sure. It actually, from the outside, kind of looks like a parking garage, honestly, where it's kind of open to the outside, so it's kind of inside and outside simultaneously.
Yeah.
Maybe the distillery took the church, and then the church took this, until the church then moved to the storage unit.
Yes, that's what it was. If you play, it won't make any sense either, but the flow will make more sense.
Anyway, so you go up this not really parking lot, and there's a office space, and then there's a meeting area, and then a bear floor for bears. There are bears there.
You just go right up to floor 3, and it's just got healthy helping of black bears just chilling up there.
They're not doing anything.
They don't interact with you if you go up there at all. They're just there. It's never explained. They never say anything about it. My take on it is that it was a joke with the developers. They were going to leave a bare floor, and they're like, let's make it a bare floor. And
yeah, all the more reason I was really surprised that there wasn't a real mammoth.
I know. You see this before you do the mammoth. You're here, then you go do some other things, and then you come back to the Bureau of Reclaimed Spaces, and that's where you find the ferry. So, it's...
Oh, to be clear, the ferry is in fact a boat and not a ferry carrying a mammoth.
Right, and it's it's an animatronic mammoth,
The fact
too.
that we have to, like, sit here and explain these things, like the fact that there's a museum of houses, and that a giant bird carries the houses back to where they belong at night.
Sometimes. Not all of them go.
Not all of them go, but some of them go, which means that the people who live there spend most of the day at the museum and then go home at night.
But their house comes with them both places.
Their home goes home at night.
Their home goes back to its foundation at night.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of metaphorical possibilities in that, too.
You see, it's working a 9 to 5.
What is time in the zero, really?
Well, that part wasn't in the zero.
No?
Yeah, you leave the zero to go to the Museum of Housing so that you can go find a doctor. Because he used to live in the museum and then doesn't? Or he used to live there and then the museum came there?
It's Kentucky Route Zero. You don't have to care. The game doesn't care whether you care. I guarantee this. So then we get to one of the major metaphors, and one really neat scene, I guess, is the idea of hard times and other themes.
Ooh, hard times. You're first, introduced to them in the play.
Yeah.
Because the guy running the bar has to sell everybody's alcohol debt to the distillery.
Bartender's coming up on hard times, and a bunch of people ain't paying their tabs.
Hard Times is, I think it's a whiskey.
Yeah, Hard Times Whiskey.
Hard Times Whiskey, which is made in the distillery that is currently underneath the church that they were talking about at the Bureau of Unclaimed Spaces.
Yes, the building, the church, not the church congregation.
People, not the people at the church, right?
Yeah, the church was, moved to a storage unit.
Right, and
the church building is where the distillery is now.
And the preacher got replaced by a series of cassette tapes.
The church, as it was, did not survive the
Speaking of, cassette tapes, the people who work at the distillery only speak through cassette tapes.
Oh, I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
They have no voices of their own.
Yeah, they're these glowing electric skeleton people. Kinda creepy.
Right. And you're first introduced to the concept of electric skeletons when your main character, Conway, who's the main character in the beginning.
Well, here's the thing. You actually see them at the end of the play, and then you immediately cut to Conway with the skeleton leg.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the other way around.
Because now he's got a debt to the doctor.
Right.
Goodness.
Yeah, so the play, which is interesting. I mean, I found it very interesting to sit through because it reminded me of stuff I haven't been able to do in a long time, and about how I wish there was more experimental theater in a lot of places.
Yeah, it's thinking about just how experimental that performance was in context. It's how that plays out is you view the thing in first person. It's the only part of the game that is set in first person. It's you can look away from it for a bit and get some, background on what the performance is supposed to be. And technically speaking, it's 2 acts being played out simultaneously.
So, there's the play that's happening before you, and then you're in the play as an observer of the people in the bar, and you're a late addition to, this rendition of the play. You're just supposed to sit there, and then they comment on the fact that you're there occasionally.
And then later, when you get into the next act and, get back to your main characters, you end up going to that bar.
And my favorite scene is there, because, the whole point of the play is they're waiting for the entertainment.
Waiting for Junebug to show up.
Junebug! And then she goes and she puts on a beautiful song that you get to choose the lyrics to. There are 9 verses. You get to pick 3 of them.
Even your experience of Junebug's song, everybody's going to have a different playthrough. Possibly.
Yeah, so the backing track and, the chorus is the same for everyone.
And the bridge.
Yeah, and the bridge. And, you also get to see, Junebug quick change. And honestly, that should have been more of a tip that something was off, I guess. But at the same time, no, they're just weird. It's Kentucky Route Zero. Everybody's weird. But, yeah, it can sometimes be a little bit hard to tell characters apart because they're kind of abstract and small. So I should have really noticed that Junebug was never really exactly the same, though, right? Like, every single scene, she and Johnny look a little different. Like, to the point where you were like, wait, who's this? I'm like, that's Johnny. And you're like, oh, it is Johnny? I'm like, that's Johnny, I think.
Yeah.
Because at least Junebug has colored hair.
Yeah. Kentucky Route Zero, ladies and gentlemen. And ladies of all kinds. To get back to Hard Times.
Hard Times.
Hard Times is a whiskey that is distilled possibly from corpses.
Or at the very least, their coffins.
Well, or their spiritual essences of the dead.
Who knows?
Anyway,
it's a metaphor. It's up for interpretation.
It's a metaphor for predatory capitalism playing out in addiction.
It's like they might have a facility dedicated to making alcohol, but their real business is debt.
Yeah, because everybody who's employed there is in debt, and they live there too, so you're trying to work off, like, not only your original debt, but all the services, like the beds, the food, the maintenance for your trucks, the time spent to teach you how to do the job.
And the steep interest on all of it.
AKA, yeah, you're here forever.
They have an optimistic view about the idea. Everybody down there seems to either be neutral about their fate or optimistic about their fate, thinking that they actually are going to succeed.
Yeah, even though we only really talked to one, so I guess, like, it could always just be that person's perspective, really.
I mean, when Conway talked about it before he ends up down there for good, I mean, technically speaking, he was going to be a delivery driver, so he was one of the few who was actually going to be able to get out. You know, physically, not out of the contract.
I guess the first time we hear about Hard Times is the shipment crash.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, they play the metaphor out as Conway's body slowly gets replaced with electrical skeleton. First a leg, and then an arm. So, you know, he's...
And he starts cutting all those deals with the distillery, he starts acting like stuff's turning around. We know the whole time he's just gonna end up down there and we're never gonna see him again.
And he just starts drinking and drinking and drinking, and then soon enough, you can't even tell it's him anymore.
And then...
You turn your back on him, like, one last time, and when you look back...
He's gone. And you check... At that point, you're checking security footage, and the other skeletons came and got him and took him away. But it really is... You know, the distillery itself is just incredibly ominous. You're down there the whole time as it becomes slowly more and more apparent that this is a company town. This is predatory debt over eternity.
Anyway, so we found hell.
Yeah.
It's like, it's honestly, when you really think about it, kind of shocking that only Conway was the one who immediately got roped into a life-consuming contract as soon as he set foot in there.
Yeah, but it's because he was already susceptible, and he'd already been signed away, because they had him go in for medical care he couldn't afford, so somebody passed off their debt to the distillery to him. The doctor did. But they did it while he was drugged, which is honestly an interesting, I mean, really... It kind of plays out like it's all alcohol, but if we're talking about the opioid crisis, that's how that happens to a lot of people. You go to the doctor and they give you this pain medication because the doctors were sold a bad bill of goods about how those were going to affect people. Next thing you know, they can't get out of this loop that they're in. And all it takes is falling on hard times, and then you end up being visibly different because of the hard times you've fallen on, and then pretty much everybody starts distancing themselves from you. The only help that's offered is more debt. It ends up being a spiral trap. It's so predatory, and it makes my skin crawl somewhat. It's so well done. Luckily, it's not the entire focus of the game, but...
Yeah, it's like... Only Shannon really seemed to notice that he was starting to spiral, really. And, like, she didn't give up on him, but he gave up trying to talk to her. He just left.
Which is something that happens regularly with addiction.
Yeah.
They don't want to be a burden on you, so they'll hide it. And unfortunately, a lot of the help isn't help for a lot of people. I mean, it's a tricky business entirely. And I'm glad the game it's not preachy about any of it. It's there to vilify the predators. It's not there to vilify at all the people on hard times. at all. In fact, you just are like, oh my gosh, how do we free them? You know, and you know this poetic narrative is not going to tell you. It's not going to be our job. We are not heroes in this. We are witnesses.
Yeah, when we went to Hard Times, and I was just like, oh, okay, so this is now we know the nature of the tragedy of this story. Unless this game makes, frickin' loop-de-loops and suddenly it's a jailbreak, which you never know.
Yeah, that's true. You never know what's around the corner in this game.
Yeah, or in video games in general. They can just...
There's one in particular. Were you expecting a mechanical mammoth? I mean, really?
Were you expecting a diving-themed restaurant?
No. No, I was not. So, I mean...
We didn't even go to, the other bar. We don't know what that one's all about.
No, we don't. So, I mean, you have choices. So there's stuff that we don't know. We could go look it up, but we haven't yet. And, I may play it again someday and try and do things I didn't do before. And we can, because we have a save game, go back and just play the chapters that they're in. But I'd have to look up which one those things are part of, some of them.
I don't know. It seemed like it wanted us to start from the beginning again.
I mean, if I recall correctly, when, figuring out the strange UI a bit, it's I'm pretty sure you can just start wherever.
Oh.
It doesn't actually lock you out of any chapters.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I wouldn't advise you play it out of order, though, for the first time. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I don't suggest it. There was a specific reason why I didn't go along with the fact that I nearly accidentally started at Act 2.
I can't imagine trying to understand this game starting at Act 2 and starting, in the zero. No.
You might think you're in outer space.
It's zero gravity! I get it!
Yeah, it's a possibility. Let's see. So between the hard times and how do I know I'm dead?
That does kind of lead us naturally to Weaver.
Yeah.
Because Weaver is the only person we know of to escape the distillery in some form. She's the cousin of one of the playable characters, Shannon, and she went to do research in the Zero and then found the distillery and helped the distillery collect the Angel's share of the alcohol, and so they let her go, and now she's just a TV ghost.
Yeah.
It's all the kind of just, mysterious presence in the background Weaver has for most of the story. It's kind of forget that you meet her in person, ? In Act 1.
She's the first time you're like, okay, we really are dealing with ghosts. But it wasn't like ghosts in the TV. It was ghosts that take you inside the TV.
Or ghosts who are obsessed with the TV, or whatever she is. I mean, I definitely made the Ring joke at some point.
Oh, yeah. But I wanted more. I wanted more Weaver. If there's something that left me wanting more, it was at one point you end up in a community TV station, and occasionally Weaver will just take over the station and start doing these weird kind of lectures with shapes and symbols and things, and I'm like, I want one! I want to watch a Weaver show! Let me watch a Weaver show! Instead, we get a weather report.
Do you need me to do the voice?
No, I don't need you to do the voice. Anyway, we had a lot of fun with that section. We do anyway, we really do enjoy voice acting these games for ourselves, so This one was no exception.
So yeah, it's I want to have more questions about Weaver. Yeah. Not answers, but more questions.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, she's here. Have her do something really weird, please.
Yeah.
She doesn't really do much, aside from talk to Conway twice, and show up on TV and videotapes, and that's about it.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It is, yeah. But, it's a 12-year-old video game. We're not getting any more Weaver.
Kentucky Route 02, Weaver's Journey!
And then in the end, you end up in above ground, in color.
Like the game's in color. It's just, very desaturated. And this is very vibrant.
Yeah, it's the very start is at sundown, and it's night for the whole time until Act 5.
And then you live out an entire day in this town in the middle of the woods where there's no roads that get there.
Which is where we were driving the delivery truck to the whole time.
Yep.
And then they have to haul all the stuff out of the truck up a humongous flight of stairs, which isn't such a bad thing to expect of someone now that I realize that they're androids. Yep. I'm like, The
It's
idea
like,
of
oh, me and Johnny got it.
And we're like, oh, that makes so much more sense now. Which it didn't have to. That's just the thing, is Kentucky Route Zero. It didn't have to make any sense at all. And you get up there, up top, and all of a sudden...
You're playing as a cat.
And you've never seen this cat before. Like, wait, where's Blue? Oh, there's Blue. Blue's still here.
You had this old dog with you for the whole adventure, and now you're playing as this cat.
And I'm grateful, because the cat has a lot of speed. And that section would be so slow if you're playing as the old dog.
Who limps and...
Kind of sighs.
And...
Does old dog things.
Does old dog things, because old dog.
Yeah.
It's like, Blue doesn't need to take the ropes.
It's so weird that horses get more of a send-off than Conway does. It's like, oh, that just sells more of the metaphor. It's like, oh my god, the only one who mourned him was Shannon!
And she just met him.
She just met him. None of the rest of the party does. Not really.
Because he never even really talks to them. Got wounded when it was just him and Shannon. And after that, the only thing he could see was his debt.
I was just kind of thinking about, so is this trio of side characters.
Oh my god, we haven't even talked about Emily, Bob, and Ben. No, we didn't.
No,
oh my god.
I was kind of avoiding it because they're kind of the interlude trio.
Yeah, for the most part, but it's like, yeah, they're the ones playing the game in the basement of the...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, Conway sees them multiple times, but they never acknowledge him.
Yeah, and once you see them in a parking lot too, and the other people with you don't see them either,
it's hard for me to make sense of that logic, because it's like, well, if he's a ghost and seeing them, are they already dead? But it's kind of the opposite. It's like they're more alive than he is. So why is he seeing them and the others aren't? It would have made more sense to be the opposite, but it doesn't matter.
Unless when you're a ghost, you can see the future or the past or something.
Well, that whole section kind of plays with the future and time in there anyway, because they're down in the zero and they experience the aftermath of the flood that hasn't happened yet once they get up above. So it's just a weirdness that exists. I mean, are you really questioning anything by the 5th act of Route Zero? I mean, really?
Yeah, it's like you get there, and then, yeah, the three of them are there, and they're just... There's nothing ambiguous about who can see who.
They're just there.
And it's like one of the things that I thought was really fascinating about this game, thinking about just, the fact that suddenly at the end of it, you're this cat for the final stretch. This game does so many interesting things with perspective. Like, at various points, you'll go into places, and then instead of following the perspective of your main characters, you'll be hearing somebody talking about security footage of them instead, and you'll play that.
Yeah, it happened at the Museum of Dwellings, and it happened again at some kind of research facility in the Zero?
Yeah, and it's like, the funny thing is thinking about the research facility, it's like, another one of those interesting time things is the fact that, yeah... get the impression that bit was possibly the furthest bit in the whole timeline.
Because they talk about oh yeah, from the flood a few years back.
Which hasn't even happened on the surface yet. Going to the TV station that's still there when we get there, but it's been long gone to people in the Zero.
Well, I mean, when the main party gets there, they just barely missed it.
Yeah. So they do mess with time, and you have no idea. I mean, you could play it out of order, and it would make just as much logical sense in some ways.
I mean, it definitely would make less cohesive sense, but...
it might be more chronological from a human body kind of sense.
Yeah, who knows? I always got the feeling that Emily, Bob, and Ben were chronologically weird. I don't know what order their stuff happens in.
Well, isn't Emily one of the people in the facility looking at the security?
No.
Or is there overlap with the staff at the Bureau? I thought there was some sort of overlap.
There was somebody in the town with no roads.
Okay.
Who was, at least one of the people, we meet there.
They do kind of repeat. One of the people who does work at the Bureau was one of the artists whose pieces were featured in one of the museums that we visit.
Yeah, that was the Interlude Museum.
Okay.
She made all the works in that one.
And then it's there's one of the exhibits there is about a research project, which ends up being the supercomputer you need to work on later.
Oh, that stupid supercomputer, and it's, oh my god, I hate Xanadu.
Yeah. It's overstimulating. I'll just say that. It was hard to figure out its purpose through shielding myself through the overstimulation. So, some of my cognitive function was impaired because of the noise that you had to put up with to do that section.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know what they were trying to do. Feel free to tell me someday, somebody who got it. Because I'm like, I don't get it, but I don't have the brain power to suss it out while dealing with being overstimulated. It's just a reality I have.
But yeah, I feel like as the back and forth, loop-de-loop nature of this whole conversation has, gone to show, this is a game that if you get into it, you can really just get lost in all of it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm very lost. Where are we?
We're home.
Where's home?
Shh.
Is it in the museum right now?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
That's a better case scenario.
Huh?
Don't you trust Julian?
Yeah, I trust Julian.
Julian's the bird that takes the houses out of the Museum of Dwellings and puts them back on their foundations.
And is Ezra's older sibling.
The little boy who you find along the way, and it becomes part of the party.
The human...
And you get to choose whether or not he gets adopted by the androids. I'm glad nobody ever gave you a chance to give him to Conway, is all I had to say.
Oh, God.
What were you going to say, though?
It's just like, yeah, the human kid who tags along with you's older brother is a giant bird.
Yeah.
Again, and the mammoth's the one that's not real?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of a shame that the mammoth isn't real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, Kentucky Route Zero is a very strange art experience. It's a vibe. You gotta take your time with it. But I recommend it. Go play it. Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, you're, like...
Nothing we say can give you the experience of playing.
Like, I would say, you won't know if you like it until you play it, but there's some where it'd be like, you might know that you won't like it before you play it, but, like, there's a weird limbo here of, like, who do you recommend this game to?
It is tough to say, but if you enjoyed listening to us talk about it, odds are pretty good that you would actually like the game.
Anyway, the correct name for the dog is Blue. This is integral to your experience. Everything goes wrong if you don't name the dog Blue.
Which you have no experience with and cannot say for certain. So it's like you only played it through once and you named the dog Blue.
I mean,
so
technically speaking, naming the dog something different might have some sort of noticeable impact on later points in the game.
We don't
It doesn't
know.
seem like it, and we haven't checked.
Yeah. I'm guessing it doesn't, but at the same time, we don't know. It's quantum.
It's a quantum dog.
Yeah.
The dog has any gender until observed.
So anyway, before we end up as whatever kind of skeleton staying on a podcast too long turns you into, we better go.
Look, if my skeleton's gonna be crackling and glowing, it better be blue as well.
You want to turn into a dog skeleton?
Oh, I'd be different.
You'd be a cat skeleton.
Yeah.
Who are we
yeah,
kidding?
yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope you get a chance to enjoy Kentucky Route Zero yourself. This has been our take on it. Thank you so much for listening. We are Collab Not Multiplayer. I'm Giggleklutz.
I'm Honeyshuckleex.
And I'm Sackbot Barbecue.
Goodbye.